Hi first graders, it's Mrs. Gady and I've got another book to read to you. And it goes with the other books that we've been reading to you this week, all about ways that we can hopefully help our Earth. This book is called The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. And if you've read it before, you can give me that me too. I know I read it to my class earlier this year. So let's talk about something first before we start, because I've been watching Mrs. Klein's videos and Miss Taylor's videos about characters and setting and taking a sneak peek in the books that we read or the stories that we write. So if I were to take a sneak peek of this book, The Curious Garden, I'd look at the front cover and notice a boy on a cool plant. And then I might look at the back cover and maybe even read what the back says. It says, "One boy's quest for a greener world, one garden at a time." And I see a picture of maybe the same boy from the front getting out some gardening tools. Another nice way to take a sneak peek is to look at the inside flap. Sometimes books have these, sometimes they don't. But if I were to read down here, this little part at the very bottom, it says, "The Curious Garden is a magical story about a boy's dream and how the efforts of one small person can help change the world." All right, here we go with The Curious Garden. By Peter Brown. Look at the pictures carefully. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems. But the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. Look, he's singing to his plants. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. Such a cool picture. Check this one out. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter's sleep. He's singing to them again. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at all these pictures of new gardeners working with their plants. That would be fun to grow, first graders. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Wow, look at this picture. Check this one out carefully and let's compare it to that first picture of the city we saw. If I went back, look at it. Wow. Here it is before Liam started helping that small teeny garden. And here it is after Liam had gardened and encouraged all those other people living in the city to garden as well. Look what they did. They transformed that city and made it a beautiful place for everyone. That, my friends, is the end of The Curious Garden. I love this book. I love the pictures, and I love that it's about gardening, of course. All right, my first grade friends. Until next time, bye-bye.